Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
Thanks for joining us on Tesla Time News.
Episode 30
on Now You Know. All right, our first story is still a big story. It's whether or not there's going to be an HUD in the Model 3.
Yep.
And it's pretty definitive now. It looks like Elon has tweeted a definite no.
Right.
What's interesting here is that he still keeps saying things like, you're not going to miss it.
Right, you won't care that there's no HUD, that's weird. I mean, because a lot of people say, I care that there's no HUD.
I feel like there's two paths here. Mm-hmm. There's either the sleek spaceship path, which means that it's going to look completely different than any car you've ever seen before. And Elon's saying, so get ready for this new future and you're not going to miss it.
Right.
Or he's saying you're not going to miss it because I'm going to sneak in some new technology that you weren't even thinking of.
Right. I think it's interesting that he says it's going to look like a spaceship because, I mean, spaceships aren't that common in real life. And so it's hard to know whether it's going to be like a Star Wars spaceship with buttons and things everywhere.
Yeah, that's what I think of when someone says spaceship. I think Millennium Falcon, lots of buttons. What do you think of?
I mean, I think of sleek. I think of
so no buttons.
Yeah, I think of the Starship Enterprise, but not the old one.
Right.
The new.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's hard to know if he means. I mean, it clearly looks sleek.
I think that one of his little tricks up his sleeve might have something to do with the steering wheel. And my reasoning for this is that there's a designer, Felix Goddard, who was hired in 2016 in April, right after the M3 launch. And he designed the Mission E, the Porsche Mission E interior, which won a lot of awards. Mm-hmm. And so he's been working on the steering wheel. And we know this from his LinkedIn account, where he actually posted that he's working on the interior of the Model 3. And I just feel like you wouldn't hire this great designer if you've already kind of released what we've seen. I feel like there's going to be some really cool featured maybe on the steering wheel.
Right. So, I mean, he designed on the Mission E, he designed a camera on the steering wheel that would track your eyes. Ooh. And then it would sort of make a hologram, kind of view system.
So could this be when Elon said no, just one display? Maybe that means because this is holographic, it's not a real display. And so maybe this is his way around that?
I mean, it's possible, but
my other way of thinking is that the Model 3 has to be cheap.
It has to be cheaper than
So how could you put
Model
this
S.
new technology in? I don't know.
Right.
That's why I keep going back and forth. I would be totally happy with the sleek car the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that I really need I don't need dials and things telling me what's going on because the car doesn't have that much going on.
It makes me think of this quote from Steve Jobs. A lot of times people don't know what they want until you show it to them. And I feel like that was true with almost every Apple product. We didn't know much about mice or about iPhones until we saw them.
Right, we didn't know about Zoom, we didn't know anything.
Yeah, and when we first saw those things, a lot of people were like, what? And then 2 weeks later, it's like, I can't live without this.
Right, people thought that touchscreens were going to be completely impractical because they get dirty.
Right. And then another quote comes to mind, and this is a Henry Ford quote, which is that if I had asked people what they want, they would have said a faster horse.
Right.
And that's true because their frame of reference was, well, I have a horse. If it could go faster, that would be great.
Right.
But an automobile, they would have never asked for that because 4 wheels and something that drives...
It's completely different than a horse.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing here. And we've seen this time and time again with Tesla where, they might start off catering to people's impressions of what a car is, like with the black grill in the front, and then they get rid of it. Because, it doesn't need a grill. It's an electric car.
And I do remember a lot of people said when the grill disappeared, I
hate it. And now it's like...
They love it.
They love it. So...
Let's be patient, people.
Let's be patient. I think Elon knows what he's doing.
He definitely knows what he's doing. Yeah. All right, Model 3 delivery centers are coming online. What is this?
So this is interesting. It's not your typical Tesla dealership style thing. For anyone who's taken delivery of a Model S or a Model X, you'll know that you schedule an appointment, you come in, they spend quite a bit of time with you talking about the car, the different features and stuff like that.
That's not going to work for the Model 3.
Model 3 has to be delivered to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So they want to get down to a 5-minute
delivery time. Wow. And how are they going to do that? Don't they have a lot to tell you about the car?
So what they are thinking is that you will watch a video, an informational video before you get there.
That's smart.
You show up, they give you your car, and you get out the door.
And so that's why they need these warehouses, basically, because there's so many people.
Right. It looks like
coming
an
and going.
aircraft hangar. It's just going to be.
This is a great sign. This means they're really planning for a huge ramp launch. Like,
Right.
we're not going to trickle out the cars. They're thinking, oh my gosh, we need to get the cars in and out fast.
Right. So I think that this is a great sign. Also, there's a new BART station at the Fremont factory. So BART, this is not BART Simpson. This is sort of the train system.
The train system in San Francisco.
In San Francisco.
So why do they need that?
They've run out of parking spaces for the employees.
Oh
There's
my gosh.
so many people working at the Fremont factory.
Yeah, there's over 6,000 now, and there's going to be over 9,000 as the Model 3.
So they need people to be taking the train in to work, basically, because there won't be enough parking spaces
Wow,
for
thank
everybody.
goodness this came online. This was delayed by a couple of years. It was supposed to be open a couple of years ago, and of course, like many government projects, it was delayed.
Yep.
But now it's open, so that's great timing.
Yeah.
So Elon's been so boring lately. Is he?
Well, he's actually started to do something pretty interesting.
Oh, really?
Yes. I don't even know how to really put in a frame of reference of where he's coming from, where he's going.
Can I explain it to you? It is a Neuralink. It will be attached to your cerebral cortex.
So, so a neural lace is the idea of this company that he's just created.
Yeah.
It's
What's
just-
the name of the company?
It's called Neuralink.
That's
So, basically, like, you know how everyone's always been like, oh man, I just wish I could just stick a chip in my head
Oh
and
my gosh,
know
yes.
something. This is what it certainly does sound like. He's
So just go into Best Buy, get a memory upgrade, and walk out with more memory.
I hope it's the like, I know Kung Fu kind of thing. Like, that would be awesome.
Wow.
So Elon says they're going to make a neural lace, which could be implanted in a human to make direct cortical interface,
Wow.
which he says that may one day upload and download thoughts.
Wow.
So, and he says it's mostly about the bandwidth, so the speed of connection between your brain and the digital version of yourself. So, I mean,
What?
cool. I would like that. I would like to have a little hard drive that I wear on my back or something, and just, oh, that was a great meal. Let me just remember that.
I want to bring an analogy. In 2002, Elon Musk started SpaceX. And when I mean started, I mean he opened some books. He found some other engineer friends, 17 of them all together, and started working on rockets. And people were like, Elon, did you go to school for this? No. And they're like, well, then you're not going to be successful because that's not how you start a company
Right.
that makes rockets.
Yeah.
15 years later, here we are, the first time in human history that we've reused these rockets.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to mark this date down, 2017, when he started Neuralink, because, again, he doesn't know much about it, maybe, but he's starting it because he knows it's important. Who knows what's going to happen 15 years from now?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, it's just, can't even imagine it yet.
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
Neuralink blowing. So Edison goes Tesla again.
Wasn't Edison, wasn't this a really long time ago?
Well, it was a long time ago, but it's kind of playing out all over again. You remember Southern California Edison? They hired Tesla to put in 20 megawatts.
That's right.
of
That
batteries.
Edison. And that Tesla.
Right.
Gotcha.
Well, it's kind of happening again. Meccanica Capital, which is an Australian investment firm, has just gotten its financing to deploy 50 megawatts this time of Tesla Power Pack 2s. Instead of 20 megawatts, which went in to Southern California Edison, this is 2.5 times that.
Okay, but wait a minute. Batteries are megawatt hours.
I know. So the problem is the grid talks in terms of megawatts, and the reason is because at any moment they need to deliver power. So they don't care
They
about...
need the megawatts.
They
They
need
don't
the
care about the storage.
No. Up until now they haven't because they didn't know it was available. So they think megawatts,
Okay.
even though batteries is megawatt hours.
So this is a 50 megawatt station.
right.
What's the storage?
So what I've learned is that if you multiply by 4 hours, you get closer to what is going to happen in reality because the grid cares about delivering power over 4 hours of time.
Okay.
So a 50 megawatt power plant is 200 megawatt hours
Oh,
of
wow.
batteries. And so that's what this plant will be. It'll cost $200 million. And so think about that going into the bottom line of Tesla.
Absolutely.
And this is coming from an Australian investment firm. Why is that important? Well, because we keep bringing up Australia. You're going to hear that a lot in today's episode. Australia is having grid problems.
Right.
They understand what has to happen to grids to fix them. What is that? Battery storage,
Right.
solar.
Yeah.
So Australians are getting it faster than American investment firms and people because we don't seem to understand the problems with our grid yet. We're like, our grid's awesome.
Right.
And Australia's having blackout problems all the time.
Right.
So they are ahead of us on this, on understanding the technology, and they're investing in it. So a Meccanica company statement said, the financing led by CIT backs a 50 megawatt fleet of behind-the-meter battery storage systems located at certain grid-constrained pockets of the West Los Angeles Basin service territory of Southern California Edison, that Meccanica Capital acquired from Advanced Microgrid Solutions, AMS, in August of 2016. So the deal, like I said, is worth $200 million. Susan Kennedy, the CEO of AMS, added, Meccanica is financing a revolution in the energy industry. The era of energy storage has begun.
Wow. That's very interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, this is just 200 megawatt hours.
Right.
But it's just the beginning.
Right. So I think that there's a very important analogy, because we're talking about megawatts and megawatt hours, and I mean, it's just hard to sort of wrap your head around.
It is.
So I have a good example of how to think about it in a smaller scale that's easier for people to understand.
Okay.
So our house, we have a backup generator, because one year we lost power for a week, and we were like, well, we need a backup generator.
Okay.
So if we were to lose power right now, the backup generator would turn on.
So it's 20 kilowatts of
power that's being generated constantly.
Constantly, okay.
Now, we probably right now only have like a couple lights on, a couple computers running.
Right.
We're nowhere near 20 kilowatt capacity. Right. But of course, at some point, we might want to be running
air conditioners
and hair dryers and something like that. But it's a huge waste of energy.
Yep.
Because it's burning natural gas to create the power of that. Now, if we have a power wall in our house, or we have power packs or something like that, if we have battery storage, what we can do is, first of all, the batteries will probably be full when we lose power, so we can just run off battery power until we run out of power. Then we can turn on the power plant, basically, charge up the battery to full, because it can charge at 20 kilowatts. That's nice and fast. And then shut it off.
And then use the power.
And then all the energy that you've generated using that 20 kilowatt generator is now stored and being used. You're not losing any of it.
So to liken this to the grid, it's like during the day, on a sunny day, when all these solar plants are pumping out power, they can be filling the batteries.
Right.
And then you can use the batteries at night.
Right.
And so, yeah.
So you wouldn't need to generate as much, because you wouldn't need to generate the full capacity of what you might need. You can generate a smaller amount over a longer period of time.
That's a good way to look at it. So we talked about Nissan becoming a smaller company in net worth than Tesla just a few weeks ago.
Right, so Tesla's market cap grew larger than Nissan. Yeah, it's very exciting.
As the stock price has been going up on Tesla lately, Tesla's now bigger than Ford.
Bigger than Ford?
Yep.
Okay, so what does this mean? Because, I mean, market cap, and, I mean, people are saying that, like, oh, Tesla's overpriced because, I mean, they don't make as many cars as Ford. And
just to point out, Ford makes 30 times more cars than Tesla does just in the U.S. If you're just not even counting what they do in the world. So they make way more cars than Tesla. So yeah, why is Ford worth now the same as Tesla?
So I mean, is Tesla just super overpriced and we should all sell it?
That is the big argument for many people who are still shorting Tesla. They're like, well, see, this proves my argument. How could it be bigger than Ford? But what Ford is not a battery storage company.
It's true.
Ford is not an autonomous software company. If they do autonomy, they usually hire outside companies or buy them.
Yep.
Ford is not into solar. So Ford is not on the cutting edge of any of these new technologies that are coming. They're just making old-fashioned cars, pretty much.
Yeah.
And when they do make a car, like the C-Max, for instance, it hasn't changed in years.
Right.
So they come up with the car to meet some fleet requirement, and then they just sit on it.
Right.
So what you're buying with Tesla, Tesla has not made consistently 1 year's worth of profit, whereas Ford has. What you're buying with Tesla is the future. So if you believe that Tesla is onto these great new ideas that are going to change the future, that's why it's worth more.
Yeah.
That is yet to be seen.
Right. All right, so let's run down some fun solar news.
Solar news!
Solar news. So a company called SunVerge is going to build the world's largest virtual power plant.
Virtual? So it's just in my brain?
It's just software. No, basically the way that it's going to work is this is in Australia. So they're going to be basically linking up 1,000 homes, all with battery storage and all with solar, and that is going to create a virtual power plant.
And they're going to control it, I heard, with apps, right? Like they're going to be able to let you adjust certain parameters, how much power you need, how much you're letting them take, and that'll adjust the prices. It sounds really complicated.
Right, so I mean,
cool.
But you're having a power plant that's in the middle of a city generating absolutely no CO2, no pollution or anything.
And this also means that you as an individual are part of a power company.
That's true. Yeah, you're generating power.
Wow. That's Really
Super cool.
Another Australian solar story here is that there's an Australian home builder called Arden, which is going to be putting Powerwall 2s
Into all of their houses.
brand new houses. You buy a house, and there's a Powerwall 2
It's just
in your
in
house.
the house. I think in the future, people are going to be, when you're looking at houses, it's going to be like, oh, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 6 kilowatt hours, and people are like, oh, 6 kilowatt hours, that's pretty good. What's the solar like? Oh, that's a 16 kilowatt hour, 16 kilowatt system. I think it's going to be very. It's just going to be part of what buying a house is.
And it's probably the same change that people had trouble with when refrigerators came out with, and they were actually in your house.
That's
And
true.
You bought
Or
a house
showers,
with
or
stoves. Or,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
just another appliance.
Right.
And just to point out that in Australia, the reason why these stories keep happening in Australia is because Australia has the highest per capita rooftop solar. 15% of houses in Australia have solar. That's 1.5 million households across Australia.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Now, moving to another part of the world, Afghanistan. Their government has approved a plan for 65 megawatts of solar on its way to a 500 megawatt plan to have solar by 2020.
Wow. So, this is interesting because this is a completely different country than most of the countries that we talk about on this show. 60% of the country is without reliable electricity.
I know, and that's why they need this.
Because the sun will come up every day.
Right.
You don't have to rely on oil imports or anything like
Cargo,
that.
right, mhm.
It's all just sort of, sun comes up, you get
Yep.
power. So I think that's
So-
really cool.
It is cool. And then lastly, renewables in California peaked last week at 56.7% of the total energy demand. This was on March 23rd. And that day, renewables produced 186 gigawatt hours of electricity. That's 33% of the day's demand for California.
Wow, that's amazing.
Now, they're going to be adding 2 or more gigawatts of solar electricity every year in California coming up. There's plans that have been in the works. But here's the thing. Peak energy can't be stored at the moment. So, it's hard to picture this, but they're producing more solar than they need at any given moment during the day.
Yeah.
The problem, again, goes back to battery storage.
Yep.
What you do with all that extra energy.
Right.
It's estimated that 6 to 8 gigawatts of electricity has to be not used or curtailed at any given moment during the peak because they just don't have need for it.
6 to 8 gigawatts. And this could just all be pumping into batteries, and then you
Yes.
could, this could completely lower the price of energy.
Exactly.
Because you can just shut off some of the power plants during the day, during the night. You don't
Right.
have to have as much capacity.
Last year in the U.S., only 336 megawatt hours of energy storage were installed. And we're talking about needing gigawatt hours of batteries. And that is why Elon knows that we need to get these gigafactories up and running, because we need a lot more storage.
Wow. That's very exciting.
So SpaceX is can't be that great a company. They're using used rockets.
Do you know what an absolutely historic moment that is to be able to use a rocket again?
What? Don't you want to use brand new rockets?
No, brand new rockets, those are expensive.
Yeah, but they're new and shiny.
Okay, so do you drive to work, then go buy a new car, drive home?
Oh yeah,
And then buy a new car, drive back to work?
that's the way I roll. Yeah.
But I'm just saying, this is amazing.
This is amazing.
This is going to change. It's going to change the world. Okay, being able to bring down the price of space travel is going to completely change the way that we think about putting things into space, about traveling in space, all sorts of things. Let's just backtrack here.
Okay.
On March 30th, SpaceX landed a rocket on an autonomous drone barge for the second time. Now, when I say rocket, I mean the first stage of the rocket. This is the biggest, heaviest, most fuel,
Yeah, it's
most
14
power.
stories tall.
It's you're landing a 14-story building,
Right.
on an autonomous barge,
Right,
in the middle of the ocean. And they've done this twice with the same rocket. They've done this multiple times, but with the same rocket, they finally landed it, brought it back,
Cleaned it up.
painted it, cleaned it up, whatever they had to do, put it back on the launch pad, launch it back into space, land it back on the pad again.
They reused it.
They can reuse rockets.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
It's incredible.
Yeah, last year in April, the same rocket launched 3 tons of cargo to the ISS. And now it was used this time to launch an SES-10 communications satellite. And it's going to be used again.
Right.
Because now they don't have to bring it all the way down to Texas. They can clean it up and fix it right there at Cape Canaveral and relaunch it again. The idea is to get these back up and running as quickly as possible and reuse them over and over and over again, get the price down.
Right, because basically now it's just down to fuel costs and, refurbishment.
Yeah.
It's not, you don't have to
Make a new
rebuild a
rocket.
rocket. I mean, rockets are so expensive.
Yes.
Because they're going into
And
space.
do you realize this was all done by a guy who didn't know anything about rockets
He
15
didn't know
years ago?
anything about rockets 15 years ago. He went,
Crack some books.
cracked some books.
Unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
So Jordan in the Middle East is
Mm-hmm.
Tesla's latest country where you can buy a Tesla.
Sweet. So right now there are 8 destination chargers and 4 supercharger locations in the region.
Right.
So if you are from Jordan and you have been waiting to buy a Tesla, congratulations,
Yeah.
you can now get one. And it seems like you can drive around a little bit.
Yeah, that's really cool. Hey, and speaking of driving a Tesla, 8.1 of the software just arrived, and a bunch of people have gotten it, and we've gotten a sneak peek at some of what it can do. So basically, the big idea behind this release was to get AP2, which is Autopilot 2, up to the same parity as AP1. And it looks like they've pretty much done that. So now it used to be that AP2 was limited to 55 miles an hour. Now the speed limit has gone up to 80 miles an hour, which is the same as AP1.
Yep.
I want to point out it takes a few days. So you drive around for a few days using highways that are well marked, and that will calibrate your cameras, and then supposedly it'll get up to better standards.
That's
of
very
driving.
interesting.
So it's not going to happen the second you get it.
Yep.
And I do want to point out, for those of you who don't have Teslas yet or haven't been quite following it, Autopilot 1 was made by a company called Mobileye in
Yep.
Israel. And Tesla had a falling out with that company and decided to take over doing all of its autonomy itself using called Tesla Vision. So
Yep.
it's in-house. And that has put them back a little bit. So basically, they have had to catch up to where Mobileye, which was a company just focusing on this one thing. But the good news is that means that Tesla is now in-house its own autonomous driving company with software developers and hardware developers. So even though that did put them back a little bit, they're willing to take on that challenge, and now they're basically back up to where they started, and now they're just going to start flying ahead because they have a whole fleet learning that can go on.
Yep.
That's going to be so cool. So some of the new things in 8.1, so auto lane change is now available for AP2. They've added some voice commands for favorite locations. So now you can say things like drive to grandma's house, and it'll know what you're talking about.
That's quite nice.
So now there's headrest adjustments. Before, when you wanted to adjust the headrest, you would just go forward or back and it would automatically decide where to go. But that's not always exactly where you want it.
Right.
Now you can do that yourself manually with the touchscreen.
Man, that's so cool.
That is cool. Another cool feature is that when you put it into, if you've got that biofilter.
So if you have the biodefense weapon filter, the giant HEPA filter that blocks out basically all foreign contaminants.
Right. That used to go into fan level 11. So when you went into that, it automatically goes, and it was really high powered. Now you can adjust that fan down to a slower speed if you want.
That's nice. So that way you can be driving around in springtime or whatever, and you won't get all the pollen and
Exactly.
your allergies and
Allergies.
stuff like that.
Yes.
That's I think that's huge.
Also added are if you have favorites, then on your radio station now there's going to be a favorite radio station, which will take into account all of your favorite songs and make that into a favorite radio station, which is kind of cool. It's kind of like maybe like a Pandora kind of thing.
Maybe.
It's not on par to me with Spotify, but at least that's a cool feature. Also, they've added Google ratings and Google hours to businesses on your maps. So if you put in like, oh, I want to go to this coffee shop, it'll tell you the star rating and when it's open.
That's great. So I mean, now it's going to basically just be Google Maps on your screen there. It's kind of
That's
nice.
pretty cool. There's some Model X updates, like lowering of the default opening of the Falcon Wing doors. So if you don't want them to open all the way, you can tell it what level you'd like it to open to. There's no sign yet of the web browser having the faster kernel yet. No one's announced that they've seen any faster speeds. So I don't know if maybe that wasn't included in 8.1, or maybe we just haven't heard enough about it yet. There is an Easter egg. If you hit the T 3 times, you will get a sketch pad on your touchscreen, so you can draw little things, and you can send them to Elon.
That's kind of nice.
He's already posted a few on his Twitter.
Oh, really?
Of like unicorns and Mona Lisa. So
Wow, that's pretty good.
You can try your art skills on that. Oh yeah, there is another Easter egg. Remember there was the
There's the Rainbow Road
The
Easter
Rainbow
egg
Ray.
where it plays some cowbell.
now it plays the whole intro to the Blue Oyster Cult song.
So I think that's
Come on,
a huge
pretty cool.
upgrade.
Yeah, just that alone is worth it.
Yeah. So we like to talk about new electric cars that are coming up in
We do.
in the future. This one is from Electra, Meccanica, Tofino.
Yeah, Italian company, but it's actually not Italian anymore. It's now
Canadian.
That's how the world works.
That's welcome to 2017.
That's right.
So this is going to be a $37,000 two-seater. It looks like this sort of looks
Looks like a Miata.
Yeah, there's only one rendering of it, and it looks kind of like a toy to me. It looks, I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to have some cool features. I
Right.
mean, it's going to have a range of 250 miles. It's going to go to 0 to 60 in under 7 seconds, and it's going to start at 37,000. So, I mean,
I think that these are good numbers for electric cars. I'm glad that the range is over 200 miles. I think that with a lot of electric cars that we have seen come out recently, with the exception of the Bolt, everything is sort of sub 200, and I think that sort of classifies it as less of a car than most.
Yeah, this might fit a little niche market. This is the same company that came out with the three-wheel company called the Solo, which is a $15,500 car with 100 miles of range. And the car hasn't actually come out yet. It's a little bit late, but it should be out soon. This was released at the Vancouver Auto Show, and so hopefully we'll be seeing the Tofino sometime soon.
It'd be pretty interesting.
So every week we like to bring you comments from our viewers, and this week we got a comment from TNT City, and this caught me off guard. I had never heard this before. It said, planes isn't what we should worry about. We should worry about cargo ships. The top 20 of the biggest ships produce as much CO2 as the whole car industry. Now, I'm not sure if that's a true statement. We haven't done our full research on this yet.
We've done a little bit of research. We've posted a link to TNT City. Also posted a link to a Daily Mail article
from 2009.
So this is a while ago.
Yep.
It's more pollution based.
Right,
it's more sulfur. They use really awful diesel fuels in these. The cheapest you can possibly get your hands on.
And it does point out that these power plants in these ships are as big as ships. I mean, they're gigantic. It's like having a power plant on the ocean.
Now, the CO2, I think, is not quite the issue here. It's. I mean, they do pollute a lot in terms of CO2, but it's about the same as an engine because they're just burning fossil fuels, and that releases roughly the same per weight as a car engine would if it was sucking up that much diesel. But
yeah, the big issue to me is the other pollutants.
Right. And this Daily Mail article basically is talking about how it's killing thousands of people. Yeah. Especially in England, where there's a lot of shipping routes going all around. It's a small island. Right. And you have the just wafting clouds of this, they call it funnel fumes.
Right. And it's particulate matter that your lungs can't filter.
Right.
So we're going to do more looking into this because it is something that is kind of scary. And if we could be switching these cargo ships over to wind or to electricity, that would be a way smarter thing to do. Yeah. Every week we also love to tell you about new superchargers that are going online, and this week is no different. Okay, so let's try out our pronunciations here. So permitted this week was
Vrgorac, Croatia.
And under construction this week was
in Zaragoza, Spain.
Oh, what you got a lisp?
I think that's how they pronounce it.
Oh, really?
We had some foreign exchange students from Zaragoza, and they said Zaragoza, so that's why I'm going to pronounce it that way.
If you're from Zaragoza, please let us know.
Let us know if I've completely butchered your town. And lastly, Florida City, Florida is also under construction.
Cool. Now, anything open this week?
Yes, we have 2 new superchargers that are open. We have one in
Albacete, Spain?
I think so. And Vinstra, Norway.
Wow. Looking at the map this week, Jesse and I were so impressed. I mean, you can get all over the place now.
Yeah, the new superchargers that are coming in Croatia are going to open up. I mean, you're going to basically be able to drive all the way to Montenegro, which was previously unelectrified.
Wow.
You couldn't get there. So, I mean, they're making a big push in all sorts of different areas in Europe. And, Norway is just full of them. It's great to see so many superchargers. I mean, we were looking at Germany with, you click on one supercharger in Germany, you can reach like 30 other superchargers.
That's
it's
so cool.
No problem. We also want to give a big shout out to some of our Patreons, Kevin Burbridge,
Alexander Libra,
and Martin Sprugit.
Thank you so much for supporting us.
So these are people who are supporting us on Patreon. If you'd like to do that and get a shout out, you can click the link right here, and
there's other things
how
we do.
We can afford to do this. Is how you can support the news. Patreon is such a wonderful way for people to directly
get involved,
finance, and influence the content creators that they love. So if you have been watching this channel for a while and you've really enjoyed it, please consider supporting us on Patreon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching.
Now you know.